For thousands of years, humanity has looked up at a bright blue sky. We accept it as absolute truth. But imagine looking up and seeing a sky unlike anything humanity has witnessed for thousands of years. Not blue, but glowing in shades of pink. It sounds impossible, right? Yet one of the oldest creation theories ever proposed suggests that before Noah's flood, the earth may have been wrapped in a vast canopy of water suspended high above the atmosphere. And if that theory is correct, it wouldn't just explain why Genesis describes a world that had never experienced rain, it could also explain remarkable longevity, gigantic prehistoric creatures, and perhaps even why the ancient civilisations remembered the heavens so differently from the world we know today. In this podcast, we're exploring one of the most fascinating and controversial ideas, the pre-flood water canopy and the Earth's lost pink sky. Imagine a world without a single cloud, no violent storms and no scorching deserts. It sounds like science fiction, but creation scientists say this blueprint is hidden right at the beginning of the Bible. In Genesis chapter 1, it says that on the second day of creation, God divided the waters. The text states that God divided the waters under the firmament, our oceans, from the waters above the firmament, the waters that later became rain. Proponents argue this is not poetic imagery, but literal physics. This water formed a massive shield, a giant cosmic bubble hovering high above the earth. So, how do we get a pink sky out of this? Well, let's look at how the physics would actually work. To put it simply, sunlight scatters through the atmosphere, creating the blue sky we see today. And that's a process known as Rayleigh scattering. But when you introduce a massive shield of water vapour high above the earth, it acts like a filter, changing the way the sunlight is scattered. And so the scientific term for this is MIE scattering. If you've never heard of MIE scattering before, just imagine a car headlight shining through thick fog, or a flashlight cutting through a smoky room. You can clearly see the beam of light because the large water droplets, or smoke particles, scatter the light forward into a glowing mist. That visual effect is MIE scattering. In the case of the pre-flood sky theory, a thick blanket of large water droplets would act just like that fog, catching the sunlight and turning the entire sky into a majestic glowing pink. And this giant blanket of water did something incredible. It essentially filtered out the colder blue light while allowing the warmer pinks and magentas to pass through. This meant that the ancient world of Adam and Eve didn't have changing weather or stormy days. Instead, it was a world locked in a permanent, stunning, glowing pink sky. How amazing and how beautiful would it be to live under a sky like that? But could such an atmosphere actually exist? Supporters of this idea point to one of the most fascinating clues preserved in the fossil record, gigantism. We know from ancient amber trapped in rocks that the pre-flood world had way more oxygen than we do today, around 35% more, compared to our 21%. Not only that, but the massive size of some of these extinct creatures completely break the rules of how animals grow today. Consider Meganora, a prehistoric dragonfly with a wingspan of over 2.5 feet. Now, insects don't have lungs, They breathe by absorbing oxygen directly into their bodies, not by inhaling it. With the air quality we have today, a giant dragonfly like that couldn't survive. The oxygen wouldn't be able to reach its internal organs and it would starve of air. That's where the pressure comes in. To survive, Meganora required massive atmospheric pressure. A water vapour canopy would compress the air below, effectively doubling that weight and turning the entire planet into a natural hyperbaric chamber. This hyperbaric environment provides an elegant explanation for another ancient mystery. In modern medicine, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is used to radically accelerate healing, reduce tissue damage, and boost cellular recovery. Under this kind of heavy air pressure, oxygen is literally forced deeper into your body, supercharging your cells and allowing your wounds to heal at lightning speed. Genesis chapter 5 records early humans living for over 900 years. Creation scientists argue that this pressurized, pink-tinted world was completely shielded from deadly mutating ultraviolet radiation. The canopy absorbed the UV rays, while the high-pressure oxygen-rich environment drastically slowed cellular aging. The pink sky was literally a shield of longevity. But this story isn't unique to the Bible. If a giant water canopy once covered the planet, cultures all over the globe should remember a different sky. And when we examine ancient history, that's exactly what we find. The ancient Hopi tribe of America explicitly teach that the first world didn't have a blue sky. They say the heavens were a glowing shield of yellow and gold. In ancient Babylon, Mesopotamian tablets record that the upper sky was a solid, shimmering dome made of precious jasper stones, filtering the light of the gods before the Great Flood caused it to collapse. Mainstream scholars claim this is just a linguistic quirk, but this theory offers a far more breathtaking conclusion. Perhaps our ancestors didn't name a blue sky because it wasn't blue. Instead, it seems to be that they may have been living under the warm pink ceiling of a forgotten world. But true science demands ruthless scrutiny, and this brings us back to the ultimate test of the canopy model, the Great Flood itself. Mainstream physicists and even many modern creation scientists at Answers in Genesis have run the calculations on how much water such a canopy would require. They found that a water blanket thick enough to drop 40 days of global rain would trap so much of the sun's heat that it would turn the entire Earth into a giant boiling greenhouse. The scriptural account in Genesis chapter 7, verse 12, demands that it rain torrentially for 40 days and 40 nights. To hold that astronomical volume of liquid suspended as water vapour in the sky, the canopy would need to contain a layer of liquid water several metres thick, wrapped completely around the globe. When the thermal balance finally broke, that massive overhead ocean didn't just leak, it suffered a total, catastrophic collapse. Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, declares that on that fateful day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. The cataclysm didn't just start from above, it exploded from below. Proponents suggest that massive tectonic fracturing and volcanic eruptions launched trillions of tons of ash and aerosols directly into the stratosphere. These particles acted as condensation nuclei. The stable vapour canopy was instantly disrupted, triggering a flash condensation that sent the entire canopy crashing to the earth in a catastrophic global downpour. But if the canopy model is true, how did Earth survive this thermal death trap? How did it remain a pristine garden instead of a boiling oven? Creation scientists have proposed two possible solutions to the greenhouse paradox. First is the high albedo shield. Scientists argue that the very top of the vapour layer wouldn't just absorb heat, it would act like a massive global mirror. This is called high albedo. By reflecting a huge percentage of the sun's raw energy back out into deep space before it ever entered the atmosphere, the canopy could keep the planet perfectly air-conditioned. The second is supernatural sustenance. This explanation leans directly into the biblical text. The book of Genesis describes a creation designed and sustained by God. Proponents argue that the pre-flood world operated under a unique set of natural laws, a temporary, divinely balanced ecosystem designed specifically to support life until the day of judgment arrived. Whether through unique physics or divine design, creation theorists believe this ancient paradise was perfectly protected. When the floodwaters finally settled, the pink veil was gone forever. Noah stepped out onto a radically altered planet. For the first time in human history, human eyes looked up to see a cold, sharp blue sky. This helps explain how dramatically the earth changed. If you look back at Genesis chapter 2, verses 5 and 6, the Bible explicitly tells us that the early earth had a totally different climate cycle. It says, "For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, but there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground." A mist-fed planet under a canopy means the ancient world had zero violent weather, which perfectly explains why the pre-flood world operated without rainstorms. But after the flood, that uniform greenhouse shield was broken, and for the first time, harmful solar radiation pierced the atmosphere. Extreme hot and cold seasons became the new reality, and human lifespans rapidly plummeted from 900 years down to a mere 70 or 80. Whether the canopy model ultimately proves correct or not, it raises profound questions. Genesis clearly describes a world that was fundamentally different from our own, a world transformed forever by the flood. Was the sky once painted in shades of pink instead of blue? Did an ancient canopy protect life on Earth? Or is the truth more complex than it appears? Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't the colour of the ancient sky, but how much of Earth's earliest history has been lost beneath the waters of the flood. So, what do you think? Could our modern blue sky be the legacy of a world that no longer exists? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next podcast.